So I guess I got you on the podcast today. I wanted to couple things I want to get out of this podcast, Brady. We could go
Yep.
down a million rabbit holes, and I'll try not to, but I want to hear just a real quick summary because you and I talked before this last season, uh,
Yeah,
right
before we got our butts kicked.
before we got our butts kicked this year. And I kind of want to recap it. You've probably done it on other podcasts, but I'd love to hear just kind of some highlights, low points, whatever. What didn't work? Why didn't do you think it didn't work? Tell me about your mule deer
Yeah,
season.
yeah, it's going to be interesting to talk about.
Yeah, so that, and then I'd also like to dive into 2023, what we're going into. It's that time of year. We're kind of
Yep.
planning out our calendars, looking ahead, getting excited about some potential draw hunts, maybe. Always having the over-the-counter stuff on the back burner, and most likely that's what I'll be doing again this year is
Oh
all
yeah.
over-the-counter stuff. But you always hope for one. But I'd love to talk to you about some of the things that you're doing. We can go back and forth on how we're kind of looking at the season, how we go about kind of our application strategy, going to
Yep.
Insider a little bit. We both use that a ton, and maybe walk guys through some of the things that we do this time of year, as it's kind of an important time of year. Like this is what's going to give us that calendar build in the fall season when we're busy out there just putting boots on the ground. So I'd like to go over those two things. First, let's talk about 2022. What happened? What didn't happen? Why didn't it happen? Let me hear it.
Oh gosh, you're going to put me on the spot right away. So
Yep.
2022, I had so many high hopes, so many dreams, so many aspirations of what I was going to experience when I was out, chasing mule deer. I had what do I have? I had a crazy amount of time off. I took all my time off, scheduled it for that late October through first week in November. So I think I had 2.5 weeks straight to hunt two different states, which I never get. That's like a very long time for me to hunt. So I had a lot of time in this one state, a lot of time in another state, and went in went in totally blind. They're two totally different units that I just researched a lot. Thought I could get away from a lot of people, and I liked them a little bit because this one unit I first hunted was a little bit more timber, and it wasn't as much burned country that I was used to hunting. And so I just thought like, hey, maybe there's some deer that just die of old age in here because no one wants to hunt. It's going to be hard to hunt. Like not a lot of places to glass from. I mean, it's very remote still, which I loved. And I summer scouted it. Everything just looked phenomenal. Green grass everywhere. Just looked like, oh my gosh, there's going to be just giants because it was so wet this last, summer. Summer scouted it. Didn't see a ton of deer summer scouted, but saw a lot of sign that I thought was enough for me to see because I was just taking inventory, trying to figure out how to get back into those places.
Mm-hmm.
Hunting season comes. I get all the way up in there, and somehow I got convinced because I got made fun of because I love wearing leather boots when on these later season hunts, and you definitely know these two guys, Porter and Lorenzo.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna throw Porter on the bus real quick.
Okay.
He's like, Brady, you're such a technical hunter. Like, why are you using leather boots still? And I'm like, well, they're just comfortable. They just work. They're broken in. It just makes me feel like I'm mule deer hunting when I'm wearing a nice pair of leather boots in a late season hunt. And
Yeah.
he's like, you're a guy who just, all your gear's dialed. The gear looks nice. Like you need a nice technical pair of synthetic boots. Like let's get you a stiff pair of boots because it's like you hunt the nasty country. And I'm like, yeah, I got, you know, 7 days to prepare for this hunt. So I had to try to break in a pair of boots 7 days
Mm-hmm.
before the hunt. I'm just trying to be sure, like, yeah, sure, I'll try a new pair of boots. Start hiking in them at home, treadmill, try to break them in. I don't really wear stiff boots very often, but I was like, hey, these feel really comfortable. But again, I'm only here in town doing a little bit of hikes. I get to my hunting unit, do my little hike that, normally I can go up pretty easy, even though it's, quite a few miles in. And the first hour I stopped because my feet were destroyed.
Was it that bruised feeling like somebody took a hammer to the bottom of them, or
Oh,
was it
oh my gosh.
was that it?
It was just a bruised feeling, but just so much throbbing pain where,
Yeah.
every time you take a step, I was getting to that point where it's just like you can just feel your feet, and I don't want to feel my feet. It's like I
Yeah.
have to think about everything. So every step is just like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, I trained all year for this moment. Like I
Oh,
am physically ready to rock. All my gear's dialed. I have a plan in place. And if you want to figure out a way to knock me down in a mountain terrain where I need to be at my best, I need to have some heels because I need to be able to climb up every single day, is give me some blisters because I don't get blisters at all. But that just literally was not a good thing to
it
start
sounds
on,
like
is having blisters.
Porter kind of sabotaged you a little bit. He guilted you
I
into.
think he was worried. Yeah, because he had a really good mule there tag, and he wanted to knock me back a few steps to
Oh
make it a little
yeah.
harder for me, a little more
Oh,
challenging.
there it is. Yeah.
So, word of advice: never listen to anyone when they make fun of your boots and try to
Mm.
convince you to switch, especially 7 days before you go hunting.
Oh man. Yeah,
So yeah, that was an
that's a
interesting start.
bummer. Yeah, real quick on the boot thing. Like you, I don't ever have issues with my feet ever. I couldn't even.
No,
I think I was like 16 years old or something last time I had a blister on my foot. It's been a long, long time. That's over 30 years ago. Um, and I wear soft boots. I do wear all leathers.
yeah,
But I wear soft boots, kind of like a tennis shoe, slipper like.
hmm
I remember a spring bear hunt in Washington where I drew a pretty good tag, and I went in there and I tried a different pair of boots in spring. It was a stiff pair of boots, and man, I didn't get blisters, but I had the worst, like it was a throbbing, bruised feeling on the bottoms of my feet. And it was steep country, all that, and my gut said, just go with what you always wear. But I wanted to try these new boots. They were just out to market, and they were stiff. I thought I could get away with them, but I it hurt so bad. I ended up I was in there probably 8 miles, and I could hardly, like, I was taking my boots off, which I never do as well because my feet don't even sweat. I was taking them off, just trying
yeah.
to like massage the bottoms of my feet because they were so bruised. And I ended up leaving my gear, hiked out, hobbled my way out. There were times I was just like, I just roll over on my side and just like my feet were killing me so bad. Ended up getting back to the truck, swapped shoes, went back in. Took a while for my feet to come back, but it was so much more comfortable going back with the old tried and true, just a
Oh yeah,
soft leather boot. The no
yep.
shanks, no stiffness to them at all. My feet just weren't accustomed to that rigidity that a lot of people do great
Yeah.
in stiff shoes, like sheep guys. I've never done sheep,
I don't know how they do.
but
I
I
don't
would
know
be
how
in a
they do the stiff boot thing though. So
I don't either. I would be in the same boots I wear right now. If I ever miraculously drew a sheep tag, I'd still wear my soft soled boots. They're
oh
so
yeah.
comfortable. I don't lose anything by using them. Yeah, I think to each his own. Everybody's a little bit different. Some guys love them. But yeah, I'm a soft boot guy through and through for sure.
Yeah. I've only used stiff boots twice now, and both times it's been a miserable experience. And the first time I tried to do my best to really break them in all summer long. I had so many miles on them. My feet just never liked them. I think it's just like I said, everyone's foot's different, and I just never been able to
Yeah.
do it. So the second time now fully hammers home the point, like, yeah, I'm not a stiff boot guy. I need
No.
to go back to my flex, like very flexible leather boots in these hunts. So yeah, I had two giant, like these were like 50-cent piece size blisters on both my heels, both my left and my right heels.
Ooh, man.
So that was fun. That was a fun way to start. But the best thing is I get all the way up in there and there's no one at this spot I parked. No tracks on this trail, like in the last week or whatever, people scouting, because the hunting season was already going on. No one has been up there. So I'm like, yeah, this is going to be phenomenal. I was worried about that a little bit because I just thought, never hunted here before, never know what I'm going to expect. But I wanted to try a new unit, try a new area, get all the way back in there to my first little camp spot, and set up my binos that first evening. Didn't see a single deer.
Ooh.
I'm like, all
So
right, that's
what was the
okay. That's
time
just the
frame?
evening.
Was this October?
Yeah, this was like
This was
what, maybe October 19th, 17th, somewhere around there.
so if I
Like
remember right,
I
we
believe I hunted like that. Yeah, we were close to the same time.
Yeah, because I remember like it had been a real dry fall season, not much moisture at all,
Yep.
no snow prior to that, kind of the last 10 days of October. And then we got a massive push. Like it was about as good as you could ask for. Like I was so excited. Couldn't have been more excited for
Yep.
the weather that was coming. And then the weather actually came. We had cold conditions. We had a crud ton of snow. And I was like, this is going to be a year like no other. And
The
you
perfect
were
storm
the
is what
perfect
I
storm,
was already envisioning.
and nothing happened.
Like, yeah, because I got up there before the storm, and I had 3 days. I think I had 3 full days before the storm. And so I like just like yeah, I'm licking my chops, like this is gonna get good. I'm gonna sit here, I'm gonna wait it out. But every single day I was up there before that storm hit. I'm looking at my inReach, updating the weather, like, oh wow, it's gonna be 7 inches. And I'm like, that's 7 inches wherever that is, like it's gonna be way more on the mountain.
Yeah.
I'm just not seeing a lot of deer. I'm just not seeing many bucks. I'm seeing these little dinkers, little forking horns. And I am deep, like seep and deep. So I'm like, well, I didn't see any deer the first night. I wanted a glass in the morning right from that little area again. Barely saw any deer. Not seeing any elk either. There's no elk tracks anywhere, which I was great on because I really don't like seeing elk when I'm deer hunting. And
Sure.
it was, and so I'm like, well, there's not many more places I can go that's higher in this mountain range. I'm already as remote as I can get right here. I'm already 7, 8 miles in. I can go maybe a little bit further, but there's not any like more elevation I can gain. There's a little bit more craggy terrain I can probably go check out. So like I'm gonna have to move camp the next day, but first I'm gonna go hike all the way over there just to check before I have to move everything. Because as you know, I carry this giant spotting scope in my backpack that's a giant paperweight sometimes. And I want
Yeah.
to make sure if I'm gonna go all the way over there, it's gonna be worth it.
Yeah, you got about two items that I don't pack. You've got a cannon for a rifle that weighs like, I don't know, 40, 50 pounds or something, it feels like. And your massive Hubble telescope. So yeah, you carry a couple of
Yeah.
real heavy pieces in your pack.
So I need to just go out and like do a little reconnaissance and like see if there's going to be deer over there. And so I hiked all the way over there in the morning, woke up super early, got all the way over this other area, climbed up a bunch of elevation, sat there all day. Again, experienced exactly what I experienced the last couple of days. Dink little bucks, nothing really moving in the morning, nothing moving in the evening. Tried glassing all the dark timber I could find, tried glassing all these little open areas. I found some little nice burn spots too in the backside of this mountain. Not a deer, barely any tracks in this little area. I spooked some deer walking over there in the dark timber. Like you couldn't hunt them unless you were a guy like Robbie who wanted to go still
Mm,
hunt. Like
hmm. Yep.
and so I was just like, well, this whole basin in front of me is the most picture perfect thing you've ever seen. It's like the way it ran, the way the mountain was shaped. That's what really turned me on to it because there were so many folds that I could see deer in the dark timber where they could pull into little pockets they could bed into in the middle of the day. There's going to be feed out there. And there was feed there in the summer. I could see it all. I was seeing some deer, but like, I was like, maybe I should stay here and maybe the snowstorm when it hits, it's going to push them out. But I'm like, my gosh, I hadn't seen anything yet. Am I going to waste my time on this spot where I haven't seen anything yet? This storm, the perfect storm is coming. Or do I bounce right now, which I hate doing? I really don't like leaving and going to relocate, but I'm like, I feel defeated right now. My gut is telling me to move. And like, I know we had the last podcast, like when do you decide to move or give up a spot? And it was just like everything I experienced up to this point was just telling me to leave.
Yeah. Mm,
Like I didn't have a single thought in my head to stay there. Like there's a giant there. Like I didn't see any signs pointing to there's going to be any more deer that I'm going to see because it seemed like every day I was seeing the same smaller deer. Like they weren't
mm,
just coming out once and then leaving. It was the same, just small deer, few does, but very few does, which I don't really even like seeing does that right now unless it's going to get ruddy. But nothing was getting ruddy,
mm.
and I'm just like I got to bounce. And it hurt me to say that because I look down at my feet and I'm like, my heels are not going to like this because now I have to go downhill again and burn them out. But the thought in my head was, I have another pair of boots. I have my old trusties back in my truck,
Mm.
and I'm going to switch into my nice, comfortable, soft leather boots, go relocate, and go even further in this other area that I hadn't been to. So now I'm going totally blind. Again, this I haven't hunted the unit, but I'm going to go change spots before the snowstorm.
Mm.
And that was the hard thing to believe, but I was like, it's got to move. I moved areas. hiked all the way back in, and I'm like, kept looking at my inReach, like, oh, the storm's coming this afternoon. The storm's coming. I got to pick up my pace. Like, I got to get up there. I got to get going because I need to get set up my camp. It's going to get nasty. All signs point to it's not going to be fun tonight.
Yeah.
So I get all the way up in this little area. I really, the area when I was hiking up in there, deer tracks all over the place, mule deer tracks. I'm just like, oh gosh, this is the Mecca. I found it. Like deer, like fresh deer tracks in the dirt. Like it hasn't snowed yet.
Probably
So I
thinking
get all the way
you
up in
made the best choice ever to move at that point.
the best choice ever. And this area now was back to my roots. It was the nastiest stuff in the unit. The other area was pretty nasty, but this was like way nastier. And I was like, okay, like what was this is where sometimes too where I'm trying to take some of this I learned for 2023. I'm still jumping in a little bit. Like this terrain I saw when I saw it in person,
Mhm.
I did not realize it looked that way when I was looking at it online on 3D. Like it was very difficult to try to like, I don't know, picture this. You picture how this like mountain looked and like felt once I was there. But like when I was on the ground, I was like, why wasn't this my number one spot? Like this place looks phenomenal. It's got a whole deer in it. But
Mhm.
just like everything I was looking on the computer, these other areas, and then my boots on the ground scout, it made me lean toward a different area. But this spot, just in person, it's like always one of those hard things to like, what you see on a computer where boots on the ground, it's going to be totally different. And this spot just looked great. Like the terrain was phenomenal. All the features that I like hunting mule deer in had some more burns, had some more old growth, had some new growth stuff going on. Like it was way more remote. There's
Mm.
no there was a trail for like a half mile and then kind of petered off a different way. And I'm like, all right, now I'm just on my own,
Mm.
which that even makes me more excited. Like there's no horse guys getting back here because I didn't find any sign of horse guys. I'm like, that's a win.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I'm getting up there, trying to set up, starting to snow on me. I'm like, I got to cut wood right now as fast as I can because there's going to be no wood tomorrow because it's going to be under a foot of snow.
Yeah.
And so I just go to town. I'm like, I have to give up this evening of glassing, unfortunately, because I need to do my chores at camp. I have to get this done. I'm totally solo. Honestly, I don't have a camera guy. I had to try to self film everything because my camera guy got the sickness
Uh-oh.
48 like 72 hours before my hunt was going to happen. And I'm like, okay,
Oh, dang.
that's so I was going solo, so I had to do all this stuff like myself, which is totally fine because I'm capable of doing that. But it was just like, it would have been cooler to have my camera guy recorded. I'm trying to do a bunch of stuff, so I'm just setting up my camera. I don't know how to self film. I've never done this before. Like I kind of feel awkward doing it. Setting my camera on a log,
Mm.
walking out in front, try to saw a tree down and gather all this wood. But then I wake up in I starts snowing a ton. I finally get, camp taken care of, teepee up, teepee's roaring. I'm like, well, I do have a little bit of time to go glass. I'm gonna go glass. Went out to glass, saw an elk. And I'm like,
Mm.
oh, great,
Just a
great.
punch to
Like,
the
what's
gut.
it? Yeah, like what is this thing doing? But I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm glassing some areas that kind of look elky, but like I wanted to go up on top of this ridge tomorrow, this like gnarly knife ridge. I'm like, that's the area I want to glass. Like this basin I'm in, I didn't really want to camp in the basin. I kept looking at it before I got there, and it's like, man, is there going to be any deer in this basin? But I had to put my tent there because there's the only flat spot. There's
Mm.
no flat spots on this mountain, and going to that basin would spook out anything else that was in there. But then I did see that elk in there, and I'm talking like it's a tight basin, like maybe like 800 to 1,000 yards. And so like if my presence in there is definitely felt by any animal, but I'm like, this is the only spot I got to camp. Can't camp on a ridge line because this wind is going to destroy my teepee if I do. Have to be down this little depression. And then that night, I woke up every hour on the hour to clear snow off my teepee because it was gnarly,
Just caving it in, just super deep.
just caving it in. And it was like the ground wasn't frozen yet, and the
Mm.
poles on the teepees. So that pole that the teepee was pitched really really steep like it should be,
Mm-hmm.
but all that snow was just baking on there and caking on there, not sliding down because it was building up from the ground up. So I had snow
Mm.
all the way up to teepee in like a 3-inch cake thing, and then it just kept getting heavy and heavy. And since the ground wasn't frozen, that teepee pole was pushing down into the
Oh.
ground. So it was starting to cave out. And so all of a sudden I woke up. I'm like, man, what's something on my head? Like I had snow just buried on my head. So I had to keep going outside, keep clearing it off. And then I'm like, well, now I need to find a rock.
For
So I
the
look
pole.
around. yeah, for the pole. So it gets that ground support. And I look around, I'm like, yep, where am I going to find a rock right now in all this
Mm,
snow? So I'm like just kicking around in the dark with my boots untied, getting snow in my boots, like trying to find a rock so I can put it under the teepee pole. I finally find one, but I'm like waking up constantly, still trying to get the snow off the teepee. And I wake up the next morning and I'm like, oh, it's going to be a good day. All that snow all night. I'm going to get up on this ridge. Got up on that ridge, started glassing, and not seeing much. Not seeing. I don't think I saw anything that next day.
hmm,
Another kick to the gut, and I'm like, this place is
geez.
phenomenal. Like, I'm in this. I can see my basin. I can see a basin over here. I climbed up over the next ridge. Looking over all this country. This country is, if I could say it's picture perfect for what I love to hunt, it's picture perfect. And
Mm,
I think sometimes picture perfect is the wrong picture you need to be looking at. It looked too good.
do you think it was so picture perfect that others maybe had hunted it in the past, or what do you think it was?
I think there could have been because there is some other ways to access it,
Mm,
but I'm obviously on my foot. I don't know if other guys were on horseback or if they're just coming in from a different way, but like, I don't know. Like, there was a lot of snow. I mean, there was
yeah.
18 inches of snow
Mm,
at this, like, in the next, like, maybe 2 days, we got another bit of snow. So in total, as I was hunting here for a couple of days, I had like 18 inches. It was just like up to my knee, maybe a little taller than my knee in some areas, especially in the drifted spots. So, like, sure, maybe some deer could have started moving down. They knew the snow was coming, but like I could glass down. It's not like I couldn't see these little areas. I could
sure.
glass quite a long ways sometimes where the snow break was. Like I could see where it was getting warmer down low and it was raining and up there it was snowing. So I could see all that terrain. So I was looking at all the high country, I'm looking at all the mid levels, and I'm looking at some of the lower stuff.
Mm, mm,
And I'm just like trying to picture in my head, like, where are these bucks? They have to be here. Or is it just a spot again? Because I hadn't been here before. Try to do all my e-scouting. Maybe I just got fooled. Like everyone gets schooled every now and then, but like
hmm.
I don't know why. I looked like there had to be deer there again because it was picture perfect. It looked differently on the computer. I got there, as like I said, it looked even better. And I found like a couple does. I'm like, okay, there's does up here. Like this is
At least there's deer and not just
there's
elk. Yeah.
deer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but where are the bucks at? The bucks can't be much higher because it's literally just the mountain goat country. So
Yeah.
I'm looking all up. I'm looking up all this craggy stuff, trying to figure it out. Looking at all these burned areas. All of a sudden, I get on this one big ridge, and I see this track. And I look at it, and I'm like, oh gosh, that's a buck track. It's on a knife ridge. I'm like, there's no way that's a mountain goat. It's definitely a mule deer track. I can tell the way it's walking. It's not like brushing in the snow or whatever. It's got enough deepness underneath his chest where it's his chest above there. I figured mountain goat would probably be a little bit smaller.
Hmm.
I'm following this deer track, gets in this nastiest area, drops down this basin. I'm like, all right, I can see where you dropped down in here. This is a fresh deer track from that morning. I'm going to camp on you all day and I'm going to wait you out. And you're going to come out eventually. I'm going to find you. And he never did, never saw him.
All day you stuck it out in that
All
spot.
day I
Yeah.
stuck it out because I'm like, dude, that deer track it's one of those ones you look at, big and blocky. And like, I'm like, there's something up here.
Yeah.
But it's the
Just
only one again. And I'm
one
like,
old loner crusty. That just gets your imagination going when you just see one track because you just gotta think like he's just this monster. Like he's the
you
oldest buck on the hill.
all this and like so now again I'm thinking like, man, what am I doing wrong? What like there is one deer track here. There's more basins I could keep covering, but like now I'm thinking to myself, there's no deer in this spot again because I think I saw one doe, and I saw two does, and then I saw that buck track and that elk. And I saw a few more elk as well. And that's the only deer I saw at the second spot.
Hmm.
So now I'm like, do I grind it out again? Like I have my camp set up. I have enough wood cut. I'm here to survive if I need to. I have all the essentials, melting snow for water, or do I move on? Now again, like my thoughts goes to I need to move again because I'm just not seeing anything and I'm just weight burning days because I am
Yeah.
burning time, burning days, and I'm not seeing anything that I need to see to hold me here. I kept going further and further in the second spot as well to the point where I'm like, I have to think about moving camp now because I'm getting so far away from my main camp. My main camp's already really far in the mountains.
Mm.
So one night I'm sitting up on top glassing. I look all the way across this area, like so far away. And I'm like, I think I can see like other features that look really good to me. And I don't know if I like could actually see. I saw some animals moving over there, but it was so far away. It's like, yeah, what is that? There's probably a doe, but it might be some deer. And it was another area that was kind of higher, but it wasn't as much snow in that area yet because it was a little bit lower elevation. But you can see the tops were getting, had some snow on it, and we had another snowstorm coming. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to move again. Something again. It's now something I'm breaking all my rules. This is the second time I've moved. Usually I never do this. And I'm like, well, I'm going to relocate, and we're going to relocate in the dark. So I just grabbed all my teepee, broke it down, and relocated in the dark. Hike all the way out in the dark. Moved my vehicle all the way around this big mountain. Reparked again. Rehiked all the way up in the dark. Because I'm like, I can't waste time anymore. I got to start moving in the dark.
Crunch time.
And then I started like, it's getting to the point where I had maybe five days left. I've already been out here for quite a long time, maybe 6 days. And this is when I started working up all these basins. And again, I'm seeing deer tracks in this new area. And I'm like, this is awesome. I'm seeing deer tracks, like fresh deer tracks again. It's going to be good. Get up to the first little glassing area. I kind of want to work up this mountain when it was getting daylight a little bit so I can see some things. Getting that first light, I'm like, this is going to be perfect. I'm just going to kind of still hunt glass a little bit as I'm working my way up the mountain because I got to switch my tactics up a little bit. I can't just bomb up the mountain and sit down in glass. I need to I'm going to work this timber slowly. Every time I get around a corner, I'm going to look, in the thick stuff, try to find a deer moving because there was some deer walking on my same little deer trail I was walking on earlier in the day or at night. And then I finally get up to this top ridge. It's literally one of those times where you sit down, you glass, you pick up an animal right away. I was maybe glassing for 2 minutes. And this is when I see the mountain lion across the basin. And it took me a little bit to realize, okay, I got a mountain lion tag because I have 2 deer tags.
Yep.
So I can use one of my deer tags on a mountain lion. And I ended up laying down and just like, wow, the mountain lion's in my effective range. And it's just sitting there. And I'm like, what does a mountain lion do when they're not on a rock? It's on his boulder. I'm like, a mountain lion's not going to hop off his boulder and feed like a deer. Like I'm thinking in my head, like it's during the day. It's probably either hunting right now or it's getting ready to go do whatever a mountain lion does during the day. And I'm like, so it's not probably going to stick around here very long. It's not going to go down and feed like a deer does. Maybe it's, looking down at an animal it just killed or thinking about putting a stock on something. So I'm like, I'm probably gonna have a short window here. I'm like, I just turned around, grabbed my spotter out of my backpack. I just didn't even have my spotter out. I just had my binos in my hand. Grabbed my spotter, grabbed my tripod, set it up, throw my phone on there, start digiscoping. There's just a giant tree right in the way. And I can't do anything about it. So it's like one of those situations too, where like I glass an animal, I can shoot it from my glassing spot. Like never really happens like that. I don't have to go put another stock on.
Yeah.
So time goes by, whatever. The mountain lion kind of moves. Take a shot, smash the mountain lion. I'm like, I just shot a mountain lion like without dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, without dogs on a spot and stock hunt while I'm trying to hunt deer. And here again, now this basin again will look really great. And I plans on camping near here, but I'm like, well, now I should took a shot in here, and there's a mountain lion in here. So now after I go recover this mountain lion, now I have to go even further because I don't want to hunt near where there's a mountain lion because I have limited days now, and not like why waste my time hunting here because this mountain lion's probably been hunting in here.
Yeah.
So yeah, shot my first mountain lion, which was really cool.
That's
super
awesome.
fortunate to do that.
Yeah.
And again, I wanted to take all the meat, and so I just deboned him. I was on the mountain sitting there thinking to myself, well, I know how to skin a bear. I've skinned a million coyotes, mink in my life. I'm like, it's got to be very similar to a bear, kind of cape it out. But I'm like, I'm not quite sure how to do a mountain lion because I've never been on one and never seen anyone do it before. So I'm like, I in-reached my dad. This is like just one cool part I gotta say. I in-reached my dad and I was like, Dad, I just shot a mountain lion. Or I mentioned to him earlier, I shot a mountain lion. I'm at the mountain lion right now. I recovered it. Can you Google right now how to skin a mountain lion? Because I want to make sure I do this right.
Yeah.
So my dad's like, yes, I will drop everything right now. He sends me like a bunch of different in-reach messages because he can only send like 160 characters.
160, yeah.
Yeah. So like I have like a bunch of messages coming in and they're like sitting there freezing. It's now snowing out as I'm like waiting for my dad to message me so I can get this work going. It's still complete whiteout. Like I'm frozen to the bones. It's so cold and so windy. And this next snowstorm's coming in. So my dad finally messaged me. I'm like, yeah, it's exactly like a bear would be, but I just stop, halfway up and then basically case it the rest of the way.
Yeah.
Get my mountain lion taken care of, get all my meat hung in a tree. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to keep those quarters keep those quarters. I'm not going to debone them. I'll debone them maybe tomorrow. I'm really tired right now because I got to set up camp, and that ended up being a big mistake because those quarters they had hanging in that tree, those things froze
Froze solid.
solid that first night. And I was so
Yeah.
exhausted because like I had a big high of adrenaline rush, but then the snowstorm's coming. So I had to go make camp again. I had to rush and get all that wood. Otherwise, all the wood's going to be buried in snow because this area didn't have a lot of snow yet. I kind of wanted to try some lower elevations and then work my way higher. So yeah, hunted a ton more days.
So now you got a little bit extra weight to pack around in all your chasing of
Oh
mule
yeah.
deer because for those that don't know, just real quick, mountain lion is absolutely incredible as far as table fare. One of my favorites. The meat on those things, I was skeptical. I shot a mountain lion back in Washington years ago, and I was pretty young, and I didn't know like, do guys actually eat these things, you know? And yeah, we ripped all the meat off, got back, and me and my cousin, we shot two of them actually, and we were like, well, we'll give her a go, and we started eating it, and we're like, oh, we got to get more of this someday. Like it was some of the best meat ever. Um, I had never heard from like my father had never shot one, so I didn't have any experience from him telling me or whatever. But it is absolutely delicious. Um, but those front shoulders, like when you were skinning it out, you probably noticed those front
Uh-huh.
shoulders are a little different, right?
Yep.
They've got some girth to them on the front end on those calves.
I was really surprised how dense the meat and
Hmm.
the bones were.
Yeah,
It's like you look at them when you skin them out, and it's like, yeah, they're all tail, they're long body. When I put them in my backpack, I'm like, oh gosh, like there's some weight here
some weight.
somehow. Like how? Like I'm just thinking like it doesn't make sense, but
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's awesome, man. Well, I mean, talk about turning a hunt around. You know, yeah,
yeah.
it hadn't
So
worked
like
out to that point, but the opportunity to get a mountain lion, there's so few and far between. That just made your
it's
season
a
right
cheap.
there.
Oh yeah, it's the cheapest mountain I'll ever shoot.
Mm,
Just as a non-resident going somewhere, I didn't have to hire a guide. I don't have to pay some guy for dogs. I don't have to borrow one of my friends somewhere and be like, hey man, I want to come mountain lion hunting, like pay you a bunch of gas and all that stuff. Shot spot and stock mountain lion. My dad just kept
yeah,
messaging me on InReach, like, that is the coolest thing ever. It's a once in a lifetime experience. He was blown away.
yeah.
And he said the same thing as you. He's like, are you keeping the meat? And I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely keeping the meat. He's like, yeah, it's the best meat ever. That's what my
Mm,
dad told me. He shot one quite a few years ago. And then when I went to check it in at the fish and game station later, the lady's like, yeah, all I've heard is the meat is absolutely phenomenal.
you got to savor every scrap of that stuff. It's so good.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
that's when I'll jump on a tangent. I got into a little discussion with her about why some of these states don't require you to take the meat from mountain lions and bears and whatnot. And
Yeah.
it was a good discussion with her. She didn't really have a good answer for it. I'm like, the meat's
Mm,
phenomenal.
yeah.
Meat's absolutely phenomenal.
Yep. Yeah, there are some
Like
states that don't require you to pull all the meat off. It's very odd to me. It doesn't make sense.
no,
We always have and we always forever will, but I just couldn't even imagine mountain lion, bears especially, just pulling the hide out and not taking the meat. Like I honestly I
yeah,
couldn't care less about a bear hide anymore. Um, you know, maybe some people don't like hearing that, but that doesn't do anything for me. It's the meat that I'm after. Um, and to leave that back there seems like, gosh, that's criminal in my mind.
yeah.
But
And I wanted to ask her some different things, and I was like, I gave her my opinion. I'm like, if we want to continue this thing that's hunting, this is one of those things that I'll say it like an anti-hunter group could start looking at and be like, all right, this is a trophy hunt because you're leaving the meat back here. And she's like, that's a
mhm,
very good point. Like, I'm like, the meat's phenomenal. Like you said it, I said it. I hadn't had it yet, but like my dad told me about it. I even talked to a friend who's like, yeah, if there was a mule deer and a mountain lion next to each other, I'd shoot the mountain lion all day
absolutely. Yeah,
because
absolutely.
it's just phenomenal meat. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it kind of sits me weird. Sometimes I'm thinking about things on the mountain, probably thinking too hard, but I'm like, gosh, like why are rules built the way they are? But yeah, killed an awesome mountain lion.
That's cool.
And then that rest of the time I had a bunch of days still left, but my time's now numbered. I
Hmm.
had again this giant basin that went really long, and I'm like, all right, I can just glass right here. Every day I'm gonna keep working up this little ridge line and keep glassing different pockets of timber. This is again that classic mule deer looking country this time of year. Tons of snow on it, enough little burn pockets. areas that deer can hide from. They can probably start migrating down here if they want to, but I could also see up into the high country. Not a deer on it. This basin probably went up 4 miles. I glassed the entire thing in like a couple days by working up it in the deep snow. I'm just like trudging through the deep snow post hauling, just miserable. Trying to
Mm,
time out like how much time the next day it's going to take me to get up here because it takes me a while to move through the snow in that country, and not didn't see a single deer. I was
mm,
like, what is going on? I don't even know what to think. I've never seen this before. Like, yeah, like there's pockets with no deer, pockets with deer, but I'm not seeing deer anywhere. I've moved now camp a ton of time.
yeah.
Finally get in this other area, and I look down and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's like 10 elk down there. I'm just not happy right now. Just like, yay, there's a bunch of elk. There's not gonna be any deer. And all of a sudden I look over this other little spot though, in the middle of the day. I'm just like kind of glassing, trying to stay focused. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a buck. I finally got a buck. Like something that's not a fork and horn.
Mm,
Swap over my spotter right away. He was maybe like 1,400 yards away. I could see a decent a rack a little bit, but I wanted to verify. I'm like, man, I could put a stock on this deer right now. I got enough time. I got to verify he's a big old mature deer. Put my spotter up on him. The deer's looking away, like look away, look when he's bedded down in the snow. I'm like, oh wow, he looks pretty nice. Turns his
looking,
head, and I'm like,
looking away.
oh no. Yeah, he turned his head, and I'm like, no, he's a baby still. Like he was like 150-inch deer, maybe.
Mm,
Like
yeah.
he's like one of those deer you always like, yep, you had 3 more years, 2 more years, like he might be something special. And like
Yeah.
bedded there, all pristine looking, this nice little snow pocket. And I'm like, I can't do it. It's just not a deer I want to go after. It's not something mature. I still have more days left. And then I saw that deer multiple times the rest of the hunt. Never saw any other deer with other bucks. Like
Hmm.
that's all I know. I saw like a big 3 point. Glassed up a big 3 point, but he wasn't a giant 3 point. And came out of that hunt just passing up deer. I was like,
Man,
I'm gonna go to the end of my hunt and just wait because I don't want like I'm not going to shoot someone I'm not going to be super stoked with. And the later I go, there's always that chance a big giant's going to stop out because now we're getting close to that time. And when all that little nice stuff comes in the air, those does start to get ready. And I'm
can
like,
happen overnight, right? Like that time of
yeah,
year, it can just turn on, especially after all that weather. Um,
yeah,
it sounds like we haven't really talked since that last podcast we did to really kind of go over each other's stories. My story is eerily similar to yours, Brady. Um, you take away the mountain lion, you add a wolf to it, and it's almost identical. Because
yeah,
I had a very similar frustration this year with, you speak to these areas that are like picture perfect, and you know what I hate about those areas? The picture perfect areas when you don't see something in them. I find like I find myself like challenging myself to go back. And even though I know
yeah,
it was really bad that time I was there, I feel like I have to go back. There's got to be one there someday. And I want to be there and I
exactly.
want to see it. And I almost challenge yourself. It's not going to be as good as maybe some other areas, but I feel like it just doubles down on this challenge to go back and take a buck out of that area or at least see one, you know.
Yep.
But
Uh,
yeah, every once in a while, that's what happens on those absolute. I found that in Nevada, some places down there where you're hunting areas, and it's like just the absolute most magical place. All things point to mature mule deer, and often some of those picture perfects don't pan out. But
yeah.
yeah, my season, um, you were having so many days where you weren't seeing anything, right? So we too got there a little bit ahead of the weather, and we
Yeah.
too were looking at our inReaches going, my gosh, this is setting up to be incredible. We just got to get to this
Yeah.
spot. We know this area. We know what happens when the snow hits. We got to get to our spot.
Mhm.
We got to our spot. The weather came in. That perfect storm came in. All this snow. And you get the fog, so you get the downtime. But you just
Yeah.
know, like, absolute no doubt in my head, when this fog lifts, like 2 days after the storm, we're going to be looking at bucks. We're going to be looking at the best this country has to offer. And all things pointed to that. Well, the fog lifts, and not a deer, not a doe, not a forky, not a deer. And the next day, and the next day, and the next day. And because I had history with this place and I knew what it can produce and what can happen with the weather, and
Yeah.
it's kind of a migration hunt, but I've never been to this place on a year where it was more picture perfect with all the things.
Yep.
The only thing different was this year the storm hit all at once. We never had any like little pre-storms ahead of it. We didn't have anything in September, nothing in October or the front end. And then when it happened,
100%.
it was like, bam, it hit. And that was a little different. So that, but I didn't feel like even that was enough to kind of just turn the mountain into like this ghost town of animals.
Yeah.
I spent
Yeah.
5, 6 days, never saw a deer, never even saw a doe or a forky. And then you get to that point where you start cruising. All right, we're going to bomb up to that ridge and look into the next one. Maybe they're on their way. Maybe they're coming. And you can't even pick up a track in the snow. And then,
Yeah.
I pushed it to the limit. My gut was saying stay, but then you get to a point, yeah, 6, 7 days in where you're like, all right, I'm an idiot if I stay another day. I got to take this night and go bomb in somewhere else. And it took a lot of moving to actually find young bucks, porkies, does, but I never even laid eyes on a mature buck this year in on that hunt, not even one. Now it got to the point where we did double digit distance miles away from where I wanted to be, and we started to find a little migration, but it was the
Hmm.
very front end of it. And
Yeah.
so, this whole time, what happens when you hit stretches like this where like all things are good and you can't figure out what's going on? You just you throw all these theories out, like you're all this like bouncing theories off each other. Like, what the heck? Maybe the snow hit like almost too much, like we got too much, and the deer didn't take their normal long ridge migration down. They just dropped down and they got pinned down. We had all
Yep.
these little scenarios going on, and this day I still don't know exactly why it worked out the way it did, and it was such a dead year for this place because I don't know that I'll ever see another year where the snow was perfect, the conditions were perfect. The only thing missing was we didn't have anything early to maybe get that
Yeah.
migration going a little bit earlier. And it seemed as if my story, your story, it's a very common story for,
I've heard it from a lot of people this year.
yeah, a lot of folks. The bios, we talked to a couple of game agents and they were saying the same thing. It was the toughest year they've ever seen. And they had their ideas and their theories, and it was such a dry summer and no weather and this and that. But in the end, I caught up to these guys in November and talked to them, and I was really curious, like, what happened in November, like after I
Yeah.
was in this general area. And they said, yeah, the bucks started showing up, but it wasn't even in November. It was like the very end, like there was no season going on, but
Yeah.
they were starting to see them, and like a month late or a month and a half late compared to where we normally would
Yeah.
see them with the snow. It was a bizarre year, man. You feel like you've done this so many years. You and I have done a lot of hunts, um, where everything screamed magical season, and then you hit a year like this,
Magical.
and you're like, "What the heck? I feel like a rookie. I've never done this before."
Yeah.
Back to square one.
It kind of like again, it makes you question a lot of things when you're out there. It's like I started questioning all my effort researching. Am I doing things wrong? Like, have I what happened in the years past that like I pushed through in this situation like this? I'm trying to think of everything. Like you were saying, like situationally, like what happened. And I do remember right before we both left, we were all concerned that there hadn't been snow yet.
Oh yeah,
Like it's been so dry and hadn't been any snow, and it didn't look like there was any snow in the forecast until like we could see a little glimpse of it yet. Like we were looking out in the future, but like
yep.
then I saw that snowstorm and I was so excited, but
Oh,
just like
all my worries went away when I saw that what was coming, like this mega storm and the snow
mhm,
and the temperatures dropping. And I was like, all right, I don't have to worry about weather anymore. It's coming. It's going to be
yeah,
here. It's going to be amazing. And then we got it, and it was just a turd sandwich up there. It was bizarre.
yep. And I was even sitting there and I was thinking, like, I've experienced this in other states, other years. Like, I was hoping for snow, you know, it's a little earlier, and all of a sudden we got slammed with snow. And it was like we got slammed like the day before the hunt, and I still wanted. I was like, this we got the weather I wanted to. Like, I'm glad we got it. And we're still go crazy high, crazy deep. And I was able to glass a ton of deer up. I was able to glass deer in the deer tracks in the snow. I was seeing where the deer were at, where they're moving down to. Everything was perfect. And I'm like, in this situation, I'm not able to glass tracks. I'm looking at basins all over the place. There's not even a track on the mountain. Like most of the time, you can see some sort of sign of life by just glassing for tracks. When the shadows move, you can see those track lines in the snow. Nothing this year,
Hmm.
and
Me
it just
neither. So I had a buddy with me, Kayam, and when you get to the last couple of days of the hunt, you kind of know what's going to happen. It's going to be, I know he's going to hate me at this point because we're going to put miles on and we're going to climb and we're going to do whatever it takes.
it's
And
the
I feel like
backcountry supper fest.
yeah, all all things are a go the last couple of days. And so I was running up 2,500 feet and looking off of this ridge, and I was like, I just got to start finding tracks. Like, where the heck are these tracks? And I would go up there and I'd just be like a kick to the gut, like flabbergasted. Where are they? Like, where in the world are they? I'm now in their summer range. Um, they're not higher than I am, and they're not mid mountain where I wanted to catch them. And the snow had
Yeah.
kind of receded at this point a bit. And yeah, it was frustrating. So, oh my man, we put the miles on, we grabbed the perches, um, and we covered a lot of miles. We lost a lot of pounds in the end of that hunt in a matter of a few days. And it came down to
It's
our last day, and we got up early. Like we got up at like four or something, or started hiking at four. Put a couple thousand feet of vertical on. Got up on this ridge. Like this is the last day. We're gonna make it happen. And we ended up seeing quite a few young bucks. Some bucks that we. This is just nothing of age yet. Um,
nothing of age.
Nothing of
Yep,
age.
that's the same thing.
And end of the day, end of the last day, and time's behind me, and probably 100 yards behind me, stomping up in the snow. And we had just seen like there was a kill up there on this ridge. I don't know, what it was. I'm assuming it was something got it, wolves or whatever. And there's a giant golden eagle parked on it. So Kym's taking some pictures, and trying to get some video of this golden eagle parked on this carcass. And you could hear the ravens. They weren't there with the golden eagle on the carcass. They were in the trees and they're creating a lot of noise. And when we got up there, we kind of went that direction because of the noise, thinking, we got wolf tags maybe.
Yep.
Well, there wasn't anything, no wolf tracks going into it or whatever. And so we went about another couple hundred yards, and I look up and I see this beautiful coyote, like red tail all the way through. First half a second, I'm like, is that a wolf? No,